Mighty a-hole for uninviting my brother for my wedding? I am marrying my brother's best friend. When my partner and I told my brother we were dating, he was happy. He was happy that his best friend and his favorite sibling were together. But when we told him we got engaged, things changed. He became sour. He didn't even congratulate us. Throughout the entire wedding planning process, he made negative comments about everything and kept making jokes about what a terrible wife I'll be and that my partner should run while I can. My family and my partner all acted as if he was just joking. When we were 3 weeks out from my wedding, my brother asked me to come over to his place by myself. When I got there, he told me I needed to cancel the wedding. He kept saying he can't tell me why, I just need to cancel it. I was getting worried. Maybe he knew something about my fiancé and he was protecting me. But he denied it. He said my fiancé is great, but that I need to cancel it. As a joke, I said, "It sounds like you're in love with him," and admitted that he is. I was taken aback and didn't know what to say, so I told him he was uninvited from the wedding and left. When my family and my fiancé's family found out I uninvited him, he told them it was because he insulted me. So everyone thought I was just being dramatic and I'll get over it. It's now a week away from the wedding and my fiancé keeps telling me to call my brother and sort it out. He says it's now getting ridiculous and he needs his best man. My family is calling me immature and keeps telling me to get over it, even though they don't know the full story. I'm so conflicted. I would never get with someone my siblings have romantic feelings for, but now it's too late. I love my fiancé. We have a life together and we are planning our future. I can't just cancel it all. I'm also not going to out my brother to everyone. I'm not a horrible person, but I feel so guilty. Should I just let him come and be miserable at the wedding? Or should I continue to be the a-hole to the rest of our family and keep him away? Now for the top comments. Whoa, okay, what a mess. Your brother has put you in an impossible situation. Not the a-hole for uninviting him, but what you do next will decide so many factors for your family going forward. Can you talk to your brother again? Maybe when you're both calm? Obviously, you don't want to out him, but keeping something like this from your future husband is a massive conflict. He's blocked me and everything. Oh, OP, this must be incredibly stressful. I'm certain your brother is terrified and confused. I can't think of a more awful position to find yourself in, but you are navigating a minefield here without help. I respect that you don't want to out your brother to the whole family. A well-worded response might help here. My brother and I have had a disagreement. It's private in nature. Thank you for respecting our privacy on this issue. But your fiancé? That's a tough one. The last thing you want to do is start your marriage with a secret this large haunting you. Would you consider being honest with him? Not stay whole because your brother has created an impossible situation for you. I also don't think you're an a-hole for uninviting him. If he's adamant that you cancel the wedding, how do you know he'll behave during the wedding and not try and sabotage it in some way? Your brother has forced your hand to need to maybe tell someone. I wholeheartedly agree that no one should out anyone, but your brother hasn't been reasonable here. This isn't a normal situation. At the very least, start by telling your fiancé that your brother insisted that you cancel the wedding, that he went on and on about it. That might be enough to make your fiancé wonder if your brother should really be there. He might even reach out to your brother and insist on a reason. That could get your brother to back down and you won't have outed him. However, if your fiancé doesn't think there's any reason in your brother insisting you cancel the wedding, then you should tell your fiancé but swear him to secrecy. At least you will have one person on your side who understands why you did what you did, even if he ultimately says that your brother should be invited again. He could then confirm to your family that you had a good reason and that they should back off a bit. If you don't, your family is going to think you're crazy or really unreasonable, and that will be a terrible start to your future. Next story. Am I the a-hole for stealing my mother-in-law's heirloom recipe and bringing it to a potluck? I, 38 male, have always enjoyed cooking and baking. My wife, 37 female, on the other hand, is not. So I do probably 95% of the cooking in our house, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it. My mother-in-law, 70 female, is also an exceptional cook, and we've both shared recipes with each other over the years. But there is one recipe that she refuses to share with me, her apple pie. She says it's her great-grandmother's recipe and has been in the family for over 100 years. It's amazing, literally the perfect pie. After years of her making it and refusing to share the recipe, I stopped asking. But I started experimenting on my own, trying to reverse engineer it and recreate it. I did this by taking a slice home every chance I could so that I could use it as a taste test. It took a lot of test runs and failures, but this year is the closest I have ever gotten to recreating it. It's not 100% there yet, but it is damn close. I know I'm still missing something, but I haven't figured out that final piece yet. Now, my wife's family had a potluck get-together this past weekend because mother-in-law had a fall. She's fine, just bruised. She was just kind of scared by the whole ordeal. She had to go to the hospital to make sure nothing was broken. She wanted people to get together so that she could have some comfort. Since she's not able to do too much physically, I offered to bake apple pie and bring it. So I made an apple pie as close to mother-in-law's recipe as I possibly could. Again, not 100% recreation, but really close. When people started having desserts, a few people made comments about how amazing it was that mother-in-law was able to still cook her apple pie after what happened. Mother-in-law looked confused and said that she didn't make her apple pie. I said that I made it and tried to recreate mother-in-law's recipe. Mother-in-law said I couldn't have made it exactly like hers because she never gives out that recipe. I told her I didn't use her recipe. I've just been trying to recreate it the past few years. She tried a slice and immediately accused me of stealing her recipe somehow. I reiterated that I never got her recipe. I've just been trying to reverse engineer it, and that I know it's close but it's not there yet and something is still missing. But she was convinced that I stole her recipe somehow, and it started a fairly big argument that ended with me being asked to leave. My wife ended up staying behind to calm things down before coming home. When she got back, she was angry at me too. She said I should have known better than to bring something like that when mother-in-law is not in good shape. She said I got mother-in-law all wound up and irritated. Also that I could try and boost my ego and try to make mother-in-law look bad. She said I should know how much that recipe means to mother-in-law, and that it's one thing to try and recreate it at home, but I was totally in the wrong to bring it to a potluck like that when people are expecting mother-in-law to make the apple pie. Mind you, my wife was 100% aware I was bringing that pie. Edit. I seriously and honestly thought this would be a nice way to honor mother-in-law. There was no malicious intent behind my actions. Some of you are incredibly cynical to attempt to attach desires of revenge to malice when I was just trying to do something nice for mother-in-law when she's feeling down. Clearly, my execution was poor and it was received badly. But I had zero intention of showing up mother-in-law or trying to replace her recipe. I was just trying to do something nice. Softy or the a-hole / everyone sucks here. You knew it was a point of pride for her, hence her strange refusal to share the recipe. You should have easily made a next mental leap that bringing her pie to a family event would not be well received. You basically said, screw you, I'm getting the recipe anyway. She is definitely the weird one here, but you really should have known not to poke that particular bear. Edited to add, I don't blame you for reverse engineering the pie. I'm a fair cook, and consider anything I taste / see to be fair game for me to try. But you should have just kept the pie away from mother-in-law. It definitely was a read-a-room situation. This was not a place to debut as pie. How we didn't have the forethought to guess what her reaction would be after she's kept the recipe a secret all these years is beyond me. I'm going with your a-hole not because you recreated a recipe, but because you took the pie to the potluck knowing how much this elderly lady valued and took pride in preparing this recipe for the family. It sounds like this was her one thing. And from working with elderly people, I've seen many that feel like their life is over. They have nothing to contribute and feel left out / alone. This was something that made her happy. It was something that made her feel like she was still special, and you had to go take that from her. I think this is it for me. Like, objectively, one could argue that Opie did nothing wrong and a granny should share and not gatekeep and whatever. I understand and empathize with that. But sometimes people deserve to have their thing for some time. I remember I started doing lettering on paper bags for Christmas and selling them. And I always give people gifts in a bag like that. And I won money working in fairs and such. And then a friend started doing it too. Objectively, I knew they had all the rights in the world and I had no business getting angry or whatever. And I never once told this to them or anyone, and I even encouraged them and gave them the tips to where to buy nice cheap pens. But inner me was like, but why did you choose this thing to do? So yeah, rationally Opie's not the a-hole, but morally he is. Edit 2. I think coming here was a mistake. Some of you are seriously mean people. I was just trying to do something nice, and you're making me feel like a total POS. Yes, I made a mistake in judgment, but it wasn't malicious. I think that's enough internet for today. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my parents out of my house after telling them they had no right to speak about what my wife does and doesn't want? I, 30 male, am married to my wife Ellie, 29 female, and we are expecting our first child later this month. Background? Ellie and her brother Leo and late brother Josh were raised by my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law was a former foster child who never found a forever family in the system and was never able to track down any biological family, though she does believe she'd have half-siblings somewhere. When Ellie and her brother's dad then decided to quit his job and leave her on her own to raise the kids, she struggled. Then she lost Josh, the oldest, when he was 16 years old. It tore them apart, and was yet another big hit for my mother-in-law who did everything she could for her kids. Ellie has talked about how her mom suffered terribly with her mental health under the strain of everything, and how she's grateful that she was able to recover enough to be present in their lives today. Today, mother-in-law is starting to financially be in a better, more stable place, but she's far from rich. She's also not dropping everything to help her kids all the time. Ellie and Leo have told me before that their mom had to give away so much of herself when they were growing up, had to spread herself so thin that they don't think she could do it anymore, because she had no support and only had her kids, who she didn't want to burden. So even though we live close to mother-in-law and Leo, she's not offering to be our childcare. Not that we expect her to, but I'll get to why I say that. And she also didn't pay for our wedding or throw us a big massive baby shower. She's a wonderful person, and Ellie will always say she's the best mom and would never ever want to lose her. My parents are visiting this weekend, and we had the argument. Back when we were engaged, they had commented that our wedding was not as big as they would have expected, and that my mother-in-law had not paid for anything. I told them it was our wedding, not mother-in-law's, so she had no reason to pay for it and told them not to bring it up again. They knew the history then, but it was bothering them that we chose to live close to her when she gives nothing and does nothing a mother and expected grandmother should do. They then started talking about how it must kill my wife that her own mother doesn't care, as a crappy mother, and how they know she likely hoped mother-in-law would offer to watch our child while we both work, and throw her a big baby shower, and offered to be on hand to help with every little thing. I told them they had no right to speak about what my wife wanted, and how dare they judge mother-in-law so harshly when they know what she has been through. I told them I did not want them upsetting my family, wife, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law, with those opinions, and I made them leave. They told me I was punishing them for having sympathy for my wife, and for wanting better for her than her own mother does. They said I should have let my wife decide if they spoke out of turn. But she was upset. She simply knows I am happy to step in and deal. But was my reaction too harsh? Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Reddit is full of men who don't stand up for their wives with their families. It's refreshing to see you do it. Your wife and in-laws will thank you. Your parents shouldn't have commented on your mother-in-law. Not the a-hole. I mean, I'd more say AITA is full of that, not Reddit. And that's because, generally speaking, people who are in a good relationship and support their significant other don't post on here. People shouldn't base their opinions on an entire demographic based on the type of people they see on AITA. I always believed, and still do, that it is the job of each partner to rein in their own parents. Not the a-hole. You did what you had to do. Your mother-in-law is also not a bad mother or grandmother. She had a very hard life and is doing the best she can. Your parents, however, are a-holes for judging her and pitying your wife. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my parents to invite my fiancé to their upcoming Christmas party? Christmas in my 28 male family is a big deal. My parents' holiday parties are pretty extravagant and beyond family. Only a select few get invites. This includes close friends and neighbors. My siblings and I can make suggestions, but it's our parents' party at the end of the day, which means their decisions are final. My parents also happen to be notoriously hard to impress. A few of my friends have made the invite list for the party before, but slowly as I've gotten older and lost touch with people, that list has dwindled down to just my longtime best friend and former roommate, Jordan, 32 male. We grew up in the same neighborhood, and he even worked at my dad's company for the majority of his 20s. While he's my friend first and foremost, he's clearly also a friend of the family. My parents love him, and have since we met when I was 15 and he was 19. I got engaged in September after dating my fiancé, 29 female, for around a year and a half. She wasn't put on a guest list last year, and she didn't see it as a problem since she was busy with her own family festivities. I hadn't really put much thought into what might happen this year, besides a brief mention to my parents about adding her sometime last month. As always, my parents emailed my siblings and I the final guest list on November 1st, in order for us to look over it and give our thoughts as they finalized the final numbers in preparation to send our invitations and RSVPs. As I looked over it this morning, I noticed my fiancé's name wasn't on there. An important note is that the party isn't the only Christmas celebration we had. I also stay with my family on Christmas night in order to open presents the next morning, and all significant others are invited to that. I told this to my fiancé and she was livid. She said it was beyond disrespectful that Jordan got an invite but she didn't, and that I needed to stand up to my parents. I told her it was their party, and they had a final say, but that Christmas festivities would still happen. This just gave her time with her own family again. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, after texting them for a reason she was left out, my mom told me that multiple people had expressed distaste for her in the past, and that she was trying to minimize the amount of negativity/drama as much as she could. If I had to guess, I know who those people are, my sister and Jordan, who have both had slightly unpleasant interactions with my fiancé in the past where she claimed they were both stuck-ups. I now feel even more caught in the middle. You're the a-hole. Your parents have a right to invite whomever they want, but they are choosing to be incredibly disrespectful to your fiancé. If they don't think your future wife warrants an invite, you should not go. For your information, notoriously hard to impress is a euphemism for a-holes. I'm also guessing the fiancé is either a different economic class or a different race than Opie. Why did Opie's fiancé call them stuck up, I wonder? Opie, you're the a-hole here. The only real question is whether the engagement falls apart because 1. The fiancé is no longer willing to put up with Opie's nonsense, or 2. Mommy and Daddy simply will not allow Opie to go through with the wedding.